Hey, welcome to the channel. So what we're going to talk about today is the fact that I have moved into a new home, and with our two Teslas we have been charging on a 110. So let's talk about that. So to start off, we moved in mid-November, where we used to have a 220 NEMA 1450 outlet at the front of the house, and that's what we use for our daily charging. We've got my wife's Model Y. It's a 2023 Model Y. Just outside the garage here, you can see my 2019 Tesla Model 3 long-range drive. So to talk a little bit about what we've been doing since we moved into this house, we've been charging off of 110. As you can see right now, it's kind of routed around and the Model Y is plugged in. Real quick, I kind of just wanted to show what we typically do. So this thing stays plugged into the 110 outlet here, and the cable is just kind of strung around, because what I do is I plug my car in outside a lot of the times, or right now we're just parking one car in the garage until we get a little bit more cleaned up. But I hang it over something, whether it's a hand cart or whatever, and we simply just plug this bad boy in, and then we go to sleep. That is the ease to driving an electric car. We never go to superchargers unless we're traveling, and that's how we do it. Same thing for out there. I just walk it out there, plug it in. The garage comes down and just sits on top of the cable overnight. Easy peasy. We simply just, when we're ready to go, we simply just grab it, push the button, pull that out, walk over here or wherever, hang that up, and get into the car. Now obviously when we get our charger set up over there, we will do the exact same thing, but it will have a hook so that it's laid out nice and neat. We're not doing that at the moment because we're just doing this temporarily. We've been getting by with the 110 trickle charge, as you would call it. So when you're charging on a 110, it typically charges around 12 amps. Ours is only charging at 11. Not really sure why it always drops to 11 from 12. 12 is what you can push it up to on the outlet. I don't know if it's self-understanding where it is, but we've been charging on that. And we've been doing this for a couple of months now. In the very cold winter months here, we've had some snow. We've had a lot of nights, in the 20s and a few below, but it's been very cold. My commute for the Tesla Model 3 is roughly 30 miles each way, so a 60-mile commute per day. And I go into work about 5 days a week. And then that car does not get driven too much on the weekends. We took it for dinner tonight. It's a Saturday. And the Tesla Model Y here, it gets driven to work twice a week, which is roughly, it's only like 10 miles away, 15 miles away. So it doesn't need near as much charging. This car is very easy to trickle charge. My car does start to drop, so we do plug it in way more often. It sits typically plugged in overnight. So usually in the winter months, for my car and my 60-mile commute, which is mostly on the interstate, going above 70 miles per hour, between 65 and 75 miles per hour, I typically, in the summer months, will use about 18% battery. Full trip, 9 each way, and 9% each way. And in the winter months, especially the really cold months like now, I will use closer to 20 to 22% for my commute. So when I plug up, when I get home about 6 o'clock p.m. and I leave for work about 6:40 a.m., that's about 12 hours of charging, call it 13 hours of charging. I can typically charge about 20%. So I get back what I drove. Typically, if my wife's car is driving, is charging, then obviously I don't get to charge it that night. So I'm down 20%. So throughout an entire week, I typically can make it through that week of 5 days of driving by charging it roughly 3 to 4 times that, 4 nights out of the week, three to 4 nights out of the week, and basically be fine. No problems. I think three nights a week I typically can make it just fine. So the reason I wanted to make this video is because I've always had the, having a 220, right, that you had to have a 220 to have any type of commute. What I'll say is, yes, I want 220 for my commute of 60 miles a day plus some extra driving here and there. But if you're driving 10, 15 miles a day into the city, or not that long of a distance on the interstate, or your lower speeds for even, 110 plugging into any outlet that is available to you works just fine. The only issue that you do have is, when you go, if you do a lot of driving after work. We have 2 cars, so one can sit here sometimes during the day because my wife watches our son 3 days out of the week. And she does drive around those 3 days a week. She actually probably drives further those days than she does when she goes to work. But it gets to sit on the charger when she is at the house. So she plugs it in when she's at the house. You don't get a lot of charge very quickly. It takes hours to charge a small percentage of the battery pack, right, on the 110, versus the 220. When I would plug up my car, for example, with the 20% used, I typically would charge that back in roughly 3 hours. So I could plug it in when I get home, and before I even went to bed, it already charged everything back up to full, right? So if we wanted to, we could easily charge one up, walk outside, switch the charger to the other car, because we only have the one charger set up at the moment. Although we probably could pull 2, because we do have 2 mobile chargers. We could actually charge 2 at once, we just don't. But, we could switch it and then charge the next one overnight, and we could have both charged by the next day very easily on the 220. So the point, though, is you can definitely get by on a 110, which is an outlet that is in every single home across the entire United States, no matter where you are. Unless you're in an apartment complex, and even 110 sometimes there are, possible to get to. Is it ideal? No, charging on 110 is not ideal, but but it being an issue for buying an electric car, I don't think it is an issue for buying an electric car. Will I be getting a 220? I will. I actually have a Tesla universal charger that I'll be getting installed at some point here, where it can charge both the Tesla North American charging standard as well as the J1772 charging standard SAE, so that in case I buy another EV, or say my son buys an EV that has that charging standard on it, the charger works for all of them very easily without an adapter. So when I get that, I'll be making a video about that charger. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of go through that. If you thought this was interesting, or any questions about it, or you're thinking about buying an EV and you got any questions about charging, there's some really good resources on YouTube, but I also have a pretty good knowledge base, so I don't mind answering in comments. Leave a like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.